Streets and Corridors were very reminiscent. And even that podcast, they mentioned we got there and they said we scouted these things, and it was like, does anyone notice how much this less? Yes, we're shooting here. But I thought to have them go, what is love and what does it mean to love when that person you love is gone? And he was already gone. He was just going there with her because she needed it.
Yeah. The whole Eleanor can't keep you rule.
And I thought that in its own way that touched upon the idea that when you love someone and you live through your life and they die,
at some point they will.
Their ghost is with you. But, and that's what he was at that point. He was nothing more than that shell. But it was just so...
Oh, and he made that calendar. And that was like... Yes. That was the best. That was like, I think for me, the best moment of the
I think
show
they put that online that you can find all the pictures. Yeah.
So good. So good, so good.
A full Jeremy Bear meets worth.
I think Michael probably had the best moment of being able to become human.
Yeah.
Like that was really like, this is touching. He gets to become...
Right. Everything that he was,
for the entire show.
Well, and then I thought too that the brave idea of let's go to the network and say I don't want to curtail this into your conventional cut of a show. It's going to go a little long. And then to have Seth Meyers host that thing after,
they'll follow up after.
I loved all these actors so much that I loved seeing the moments of them having to say something to each other, and at the end, the reverence with which the three gave to both Kristen Bell and Ted Danson, because they are arguably the bigger stars here.
Right, yeah.
But you get that from those two people, that they were probably so massively generous with their time and their ability to shift and give those other people the focus. It was truly sweet to see the love that these actors had amongst each other, and also that Ted Danson's wife made a cameo, teaching him guitar. Which, have y'all heard about her?
Mary Steenburgen?
Yeah, so she all of a sudden is writing music. That she had some sickness or something that she said was like a trigger for her. I'm probably quoting that wrong, but she really was able to do these things, and now she's winning awards for like contributing films, like songs to films.
Wow.
And so I'm sure that's probably why they said, we've been trying to get him to write a song all along this. He's always mentioning that. Mary, you're doing that. Wouldn't it be fun to have you sit there? And
that was a really nice touch.
I cheered when she was there. I was like, oh, I love that, because I adore her.
Of course, it was beautiful that when you go through the door, you become part of the universe, and maybe a little bit of you affects somebody else.
Your grace falls upon somebody else.
It was nice to have 4 seasons of a show that just kind of neatly wrapped up. It wasn't 6 seasons, wasn't 7 seasons, and the characters were interesting enough that I could have followed them for that period of time as a fan of the show.
And who would have thought?
I'm so happy to let it go at the same time. I can watch 4 seasons and watch a tight show.
I agree, Richard.
These characters progress and have a conclusion.
And who would have thought that you would have sat there and watched 4 seasons of shows that was teaching you about moral philosophy?
Right.
Basically.
Well, they said that in the podcast, that who would have ever thought we could land a show where it's about philosophy. That's
on
really
a network television.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that too. Let's go back to The Crown again. They've said all along that is 5 seasons, and it's going to be 2 seasons with the cast, 2 with 1, and then they're going to do 1 with the oldest person. They've already said, I think, who's God, I can't remember who's going to play the Queen when she's older. I wish more often they would look and say, here's a story. We're going to do this. To an extent, Game of Thrones is brave in that because they didn't want to keep going when HBO goes. We all know how disjointed that got at the end, but at the same time, you have to take those moments and learn how to do this better. But I wish more networks would pay attention to this model.
There are a couple of shows that I honestly wish, and they're J.J. Abrams shows, I kind of had wished had that game plan. Mm-hmm. Alias was one.
Never watched an episode, but I heard it was good.
It's phenomenal.
I heard when it was good, it was good.
But it's phenomenal. But it has a natural life of 3 or 4 seasons where they can only move the players, the chess pieces, and so many spy moments.
And again, a J.J. Abrams thing, or where he didn't actually think out what the actual mystery is. It felt like they were making up as they went along, in Lost.
Like in Lost. And Lost was, 7 seasons? And it really.
But to be fair, that was both of those are way before networks ever began this idea of how to do that.
Can you imagine if those shows had done that? Battlestar Galactica was another one that really needed to kind of tighten itself. They didn't. I felt like Ronald Moore didn't know what he was doing at some point when they did the time jump.
Right.
And I'm like, oh wait, every show's doing a time jump right now. They're doing a time jump too as a way of kind of like moving their characters along and flushing their storylines so they can bring back something else. And Battlestar could have been amazing.
Oh, Battlestar should have been the best. No offense to Babylon 5, I know you love it, but let's imagine this. Let's imagine that they did say, like Babylon 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. We're going to tell a story, and here's your big budget. It should have been with that story they wanted to tell. It should have been the best science fiction TV show ever. But it ends up meandering along as they try, and then it like, finally is like, okay, we need to wrap this up.
Let's hide
then you've got so many things you got to pull it in.
But when you look at Alias that you see in Battlestar Galactica, they do this thing where they do this really, really gritty, awesome, fantastic, like first 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then like, okay, we have to find some mystical element to trap the audience in to go a little bit further. The mystery Cylons, and Alias, it was the Rimbaldi device. Yeah. And whether, what's her name was part of her mom or whatever. So it hooks.
Are you talking about Alias?
Alias, right? Oh, yeah. So it hooks the aliens into kind of a supernatural element,
right?
That brings these grounded shows into something that's supposed to be supernatural, which is fine if it were part of the entire game plan. If it were known and could play itself out in 4 or 5 seasons, and instead it becomes the hook that brings people in with no payoff.
But I think the onus belongs so much, most of the time, on the networks that are putting this out, because they're demanding, no, we can't do this 2 or 3. You look at the European model, they do, Spaced was only 2 seasons, and that's all they intended.
Episodes, yeah.
100%. They said, we're going to do this cool little show. It's going to be this and this. And the European model is cool with that. Okay, well, great. Then what are you bringing me next year? Oh, Broadchurch, this weird dark thing about a child murder. Oh, maybe 1, maybe 2 series. And then we finally get Lindelof, who does Watchmen, and says when it ends,
no more, yeah.
then he's like, I'm done.
That's where I go. And I'm like, okay, what is Lindelof going to do next? What are these actors going to do? I want to see what they do next.
Me too.
I'm going to follow them into whatever the next concept is. Dark is losing me because they're doing that expansive, like, okay, we have 3 time periods.
Oh, that's that German one? Yeah.
1986 and 1953, and then
30 years ahead, yeah.
Whatever. And they were going back and forth between these 2, and then we get to end of season 2, and all of a sudden they're like, no, wait, it's 33 years beyond that. Now we have 5 time periods. And I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah, at some point it becomes cumbersome to that point. And you mentioning Lost made me think of something Sean and I talked about earlier, but with Witcher, again, liked the show, but find it confusing. But you want to talk about how to flip between realities? Lost to this day has one of the best conventions, which was that symbol.
And just let you know.
And you knew, by the way, we're going to an alternate.
True, yeah.
And it was this simple little sound that told me, oh, okay, I get it. Witcher doesn't do anything like for that. So then when you see a little girl here, but over here she's acting different, like she has different information, you're like, what the
I literally needed somebody to explain to me the novel series to know what was happening in the show. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, the show's actually really smart because it's doing all the prequel books, which were
cool.
Weird, great, cool. I
wish it had done something to let me know.
It did so well, and it was enjoyable, but man, it was not a great first season in terms of telling a story about these characters.
And again, I've said before how I really like Henry Cavill. I hope DC, especially now that he has a hit on his hands, will look and say, okay, dude's pretty hot right now.
Right.
He's a good Superman. He deserves a good movie. He deserves a chance. That's not enough for me to love that show. I'll watch it again.
I'll watch it again, but I wasn't. Chris and I had to fight my way through it.
Mm-hmm. There were times where I found myself compelled to watch it because I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then there would be entire episodes that just played like it was almost straight time, and then it would go to crazy time again. I will watch next season, and if they do it to me again, if they haven't cleared this up, because I've seen that complaint elsewhere, if they aren't going to clear it up, I'm done with it.
I agree. I liked it enough to watch a new season, but I'm not committed enough to just keep loving it.
All right, we're about 24 minutes. Anybody?
That's it for me.
All right, that's it for In Between. We'll be back in a couple of days with, I guess it's minute 16 that we're going to start on, right?
Yeah. On Monday.
Everybody have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.